One question for you, Thomas. When's it going to come out?
When it's finished.
When it's finished.
But it will be finished this year. And the reason for that is I have done so many things that I could sign off, but there's still a few things that need to be tweaked to my liking, because I would deeply regret making compromises now on an analog platform, which I can never change in the future. All software I can live. Yeah.
That makes absolute sense. But you did tell me when we were chatting at the airport that it's coming out this year, and it's got to put a line through it.
Yeah.
And when we say it, we mean the Amp X from Blug Guitar. Can we hear it? Because maybe people haven't heard it. They may have not even heard the Amp 1. So let's hear the first channel, which is what?
Well, this is an example of my amp collection. This is a 50-watt Plexi, a JMP 1987 is the model number. That amp is from 1969, an amp that I played a lot on many recordings and even live. And yeah, I know that amp very well, and so I recreated that particular amp on the MX platform, and this is what it sounds like, okay?
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah. What's actually happening here is we have real power amp saturation. It's not a preamp that does some overdrive, which can be nice, but this is recreating the power amp section of that particular non-master volume Marshall. And now I have the saturation of that authentic saturation of a power amp, overdriven power amp at any volume. So this wasn't too loud now. We could,
it was a usable volume. I mean, people heard it, of course, but it's not like, whoa, Thomas is loud.
Yeah.
You know?
But it is the sound of the amp fully cranked. No? So, and that was always my dream. I had bought these amps 20, 30 years ago when I was a session musician, when people paid me to deliver great sounds in the studio. And I played for the Rainbirds, I played for No Angels, I played on many records. I have a funny collection of different styles, even music I shouldn't have done, but
We'll find out about that later.
Yeah. But anyway, so these amps have always done a fantastic job in the studio. And what I learned in the studio is the sweet spot comes from the power amp stage when you crank them, because this gives you the richness, and this is placing the amp like in the mix, and it feels right, and it gives you the punch and everything. And then you can tweak the front end with pedals, or you have different amps to do that. And for me, the long journey designing amps, being it all tube, transistor, or even modeling amps back in the days with 𝗬𝗎𝗎𝗎 and Steinberg, for instance, I found out that I always was striving for this authentic tone. And I'm so happy that after 40 years it took to finally find the secret how to get that and have no side effects. Because if you have a great tube and if you crank it, fine. But the moment you try to get the volume down with a power soak, it's hard to keep the character 100% alive. And I know why, because it's the interaction of the power amp stage with the speaker, the eye feedback, and that changes kind of a EQ curve to this power amp stage. And as the power amp stage goes into saturation, certain frequencies go into saturation earlier than others. And this is this kind of dynamic sponginess that is happening.
And the thing is, Thomas, not everybody has had the joy of playing through a super loud amp. And until you experience that, you don't know what you're talking about. But you're going to bring that
into usable volume. And for me, being a professional player, I need that lower volume as well, because these days nobody wants you to show up with a 100-watt Plexi on stage anymore. I've done it. I had a three-piece band specially formed to have that experience, like Jimi Hendrix's experience. and my singer had like red eyes, screaming at me, I can't hear a fucking thing. But because we were on a mission, we did it for half a year.
Authentic, yeah.
Yeah, we did it for half a year, and it was fantastic outdoors when we played a bigger festival. But in small clubs, it was like a nightmare.
Didn't Hendrix just turn everything up on the front?
Yeah.
So what else have we got? We've got this vintage Marshall, but what have you got else?
We got some of the effects, like my beloved 𝗬𝗎𝗪𝗪 Replex, which is already a recreation of an Echoplex, but the first generation, which is tubes driven. And so I have here the tube preamp stage in front of the amp, plus I have the modulation effects. This is kind of one of my secret weapons when I play. It's like when I play soft, just a little thing in the background. But when I go wild,
it's lovely, dynamically responsive, beautiful.
And this is because that delay is in front of the amp, old school. And of course, we have other effects like phaser, we have reverb on board, we have standard delays like my Boss DD2, which I use a lot. Then there is a halo. I have a preset here that shows that.
Now, Thomas, I don't want to give them everything
Okay.
because it's not ready yet. But one thing that interests me is that you said you're not happy with the high gain stuff.
Yeah.
Can we hear a little bit of what it is, and then you tell me what you don't like?
Yeah, I'm honest. I have because I will do my thing anyway. So this is my own amp, the Iridium, and the modern channel. So if I play that, first of all, I should play a humbucker guitar.
Yeah, we can switch that out.
Okay, this is just an example of high gain that does not satisfy me. Okay, it is already my first attempt to my own amp. And by the way, I have many attempts to get an amp right. So it's not like a Kemper Profiler or some other of these modeling devices that kind of have a test signal and do it all by themselves. I have to design the particular amp or effect myself. And to do that, of course, we can measure things, but we also have to hear things. And what I learned from the process that I'm doing here is like sometimes it takes 1 or 2 or even 3 attempts to be correct. And
because it's analog, every time you want to change something, you have to redesign the circuits.
Yeah. And in this case, is the redesign of the circuit is now on the process of being fixed, but then the control data is what I have, and the control data is sometimes you measure something, and if you don't understand the amp properly, you don't get to the real authentic results. Therefore, I personally say that most modelers, they just have one screenshot, kind of one sound, but the moment you touch a knob, there's something else. I'm not saying it's bad, it's not the really, but I want to really recreate the full amp with all these settings. If the treble is on 5, it should be the treble on 5 of that particular amp. And that's the most thing I'm proud of, the H factor, because I learned from a vintage amp. I modeled my own 1957 Tweed Deluxe, and that amp is such a crazy amp. Any note you play, the power amp gets into saturation, everything the voltage drops 50%, 30%, like totally crazy. and by the voltage drops, you change the curve of the clipping also in the preamp stages. So it's a chaos, total chaos. But my first attempt here was too clean. It sounded like a reissue amp. And there's nothing wrong about a reissue amp, but I wanted to get my amp, which is not a reissue, which is the real deal. And this was
Thomas. I know you're really passionate,
but this is the thing. Okay.
Let's hear what Thomas doesn't like. So what don't you like about that? I don't like that either. What don't you like?
Well, it fizzes out on the top end, and it has some ugly snarliness in the mids, and it has not the right thump in the low end. I mean,
it also sounds very small and direct, whereas the other sound sounded big and like a tube amp.
Exactly. And if I compare this to my Iridium, that sounds right. That sounds like a tube amp, and this just sounds like a toy amp.
True.
Yeah. And I know this was a quick one before the show. Let's do I was so excited about my stuff. Let's try to do some metal sounds. And first, I could do better even with what I've got, but I'm sure when I spend another month with many amps, when I try to get the real authentic 5150 sound, when I get a real challenges in the house, which I already organized. I talked with the guys from Driftwood, how the industry
is, very cool.
So, and we will challenge each other to get it right. So, and I'm sure with all the stuff that I already experienced and with all the tools that I kind of have in this, rearranging it is a matter of a month, maybe two. But I have to do a couple of different high gain amps, also extreme stuff. And this is what I'm doing next.
Okay, so Amp X is going to come out this year, 2024. Yeah. My final question for you, Thomas. When is Amp X2 coming?
There's no Amp X2. See? And this is why it takes so long now.
Sure, you want to nail it, right?
I nail it now because my company is small. If I have to do another hardware product, it's a nightmare. This amp will come out and it will be good for the next 10 years, period. And this is, and I don't want to regret anything in 5 years because I did a compromise today. This is why there is no Amp X2. There is Amp X, and that will be the flagship and the pinnacle of what I have been doing in my whole entire life, and the rest will be easy stuff for me before I retire and enjoy music.
Well, I wish you a wonderful time on the beach in 2025 when you've given up,
2035.
2035. Okay, fair enough.
Not before that. And actually, I can't stop it. I know, man. I'm sure. It's passion, and I think even with 80s, when I just can play one note, but if I play the right note, it makes me happy, and the people that like it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. Take care. I will see you. I will hold you to that coming out in 2024.
Yeah.
I will look forward to playing it at some point, and I really want to hear that high gain sound when it's done to your level.
It's good that I make these promises because I cannot step out and lose. Okay.
All right.
So
links to Thomas's website in the video description, more playlists and videos from me on your screen now. There's also a subscribe button if you need it. And any comments for Thomas, leave them in the comments section. I'll make sure he reads them. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Cheers.